Greetings. One of the key factors, key tools that we have, I'll say, is using the TI 83 and the 84 calculator. If you have a different one, namely something like an 86 or an 86 CE, something that isn't an 83 or 83 plus, 84 or 84 plus, you're really going to have to depend on YouTube. There'll be slight discrepancies. This is why I was advising to get the 83 and 84 because I can support this and I can support it with these emulators. And I actually sent you a link how you can install this onto your computer. In any case, we're going to make extensive use of the 83 and 84. We're making extensive use of the calculator as we move on with this course. It's going to simplify our work. There are a lot of similarities between the 83 and 84, and I'm not just quite certain how many have the older version or the newer version. There are slight discrepancies. Anyways, one of the first things, I want to use the 84 to start off with. One of the first things, if you've rented this or maybe you borrowed it from a friend, is you may want to set this back to factory defaults. And I'll post some videos on this. In fact, in tonight's assignment, there are several videos introducing the 83 and 84. I wanted to do this one um, special for you. So resetting it back to factory defaults. All of these keys have multiple functions. Majority of them have three different functions. You have an initial function, a first function, and then a second function, which is denoted in blue, and then you have an alpha function, which are letters, all right, and that's sort of in a greenish color. Anyways, to set this to factory defaults, I'm going to press the second key and then press the plus sign. What I'm doing here is initiating the MEM. You see that in blue, which indicates it's a second function. All right, so second function, hit the plus sign, and I want to arrow down. I'll simply press the number 7, go to reset. And what I would want to do here is I would stay away from setting all RAM. The reason being, if you've got a program already in there, which probably you don't, that would wipe that out. What you would want to do is go down to number 2 and then go down to number 2 and then hit enter. And that would reset the calculator right back to factory defaults. And on the 83, it's done the same way. Its second function, hit the plus key, and then go down to number 7 and follow the same thing. Reset all back into factory defaults. To get out of this menu, I'm going to go second function, hit the mode key. Second function mode is the quit. All right. So majority of second functions on the 83 are in yellow, and on the 84, the second function is indicated by something in blue. Another key thing is a large percentage of the answers that you'll obtain on the 83 and 84 will be in decimals. Now, by default, the calculator will give you an answer correct at 9 decimal places. Well, you're never going to see an answer with 9 decimal places. Most you're going to see is maybe 3, 4. So what you want to need to do initially, I like to set my calculator to 2 or 3 decimal places. And how I do this is by clicking on the mode key right here, clicking on mode, and then the second option, if I arrow down, it's float. That tells me the number of decimal places. What I don't want to see or have this set to 9 places. Nothing is going to be, we don't need the accuracy out to 9 places. My suggestion, and I hope you follow this, is to keep yours set at 2 to 3 decimal places. All right, there I have it at 2. Once I decide I want 2, I want a second function, hit the mode key. Second function of the mode key is quit. Quit gets me back to my main screen. Same thing with the 83. Go down to mode, and where it says float, that describes a number of decimal places. This is already set to 2. My suggestion is keep it set to 2 or to 3. Occasionally, you may want 4 places. So if you're trying to decide whether you have the correct answer for an individual problem, go to mode, set it at 4 if you need it, but 2 or 3 works out fine. In either case, mean, median, and mode. Not the most complicated topics. You probably were introduced to mean and median and mode, probably, I would guess, 7th grade. I know I did this back in 1970 when I started teaching 7th grade. But the idea is if you have a very few numbers, like your data set consists of 5 or 6 or 7 numbers, finding the average, the mean, you add them all up, divide by 7. The mode, the number that's used most frequently, if there is one. The median, the middle number. If there's an odd amount of numbers, there's an exact middle. And if there's an even amount, there's 2 middle ones. You average out those 2 middle numbers. That's all well and good if you've got a small data set. If you have a large data set, well, then utilizing the calculator makes sense. The calculator will not give you the mode number or the value that's repeated most. You got to find it on your own. It's just pretty simplistic. Sometimes you have more than one number repeated. Bimodal, your set is bimodal. Sometimes there is no number that's repeated more than once. There is no mode. In either case, it involves working with the list. And there's a video in this homework module that walks you through list, but I wanted to take the time to do it here. I believe it's number 11 on your homework, where it's denoted as show TI 8384. In the PowerPoint, this video will come right after that slide. So how do I get to lists? All right, so I'm going to hit my stat button. All right, notice I didn't go second function list. I just hit my stat button. And the very first option here is edit. Now, what I've done is taken the liberty to put those numbers in this problem. I believe it's number 11 on the 83. I go to stat. The very first option is edit, and I've got those same values in. I like to keep my values that I'm working on in list one. Sometimes you have to use 2 lists at a time. I like to use L1 and L2, and I'll tell you why. When you utilize the calculator, you want to compute a certain value for you. You're going to have to tell the calculator which list your data values are in. So if you start putting them in L3 or L5 or L6, sometimes you just forget. You go to do the operation, you go, well, where's my numbers? And I got to go back and figure out if they're in list one or list two. That's great because you can kind of remember that. All right. Now let's assume that you do have some numbers in a list. I could, if I wanted to get rid of these values, hit delete one by one. That would do it. But a faster way of doing it is I want to arrow up to I'm above this horizontal line here. And I'm going to press the clear button followed by the enter key. That's a fast way of getting rid of all the values in a list, especially if they're like 40 of them. You don't want to delete them individually. And the same thing on the 84. The procedure is the same. I'll go above the horizontal line and hit clear, not delete, hit clear. And that gets rid of all those values. All right. So here are the numbers that represent, I think it's number 11. All right. And we're asked to find the mean of the set of values, the mean. All right. And also, I could calculate while I'm at it, calculate the median. I'm not sure he asked you for that. But let's do both. All right. So both the 82 and the 80, I'm sorry, 84 and the 83, all my values are in list one. On the 84, here's what I want to do. I want to calculate it, to calculate the average, the mean, and I also want to calculate the median. So I'm going to go back to stat. I'm going to go to arrow over to calculate. The only thing that in this course we'll use under the calculate menu is this very first option, one variable stat. We'll never use anything else. There are quite a few different functions here. All right. We're not going to use anything but this very first one under the calc menu. I want the calculator to give me the mean and the median. It'll give me a lot of other things as well. I'm going to hit enter, and it says, hey, where are the numbers that you want me to perform my magic? Well, they're in list one. All right. And let's say, for instance, they were in list two. All right. How do I get to list two? I don't know. As you see L2 here in blue, it's a second function. I would hit second function, the number two. There it is, L2. Or maybe I want second function. Well, I should have to clear that out first. Let's say my numbers are in L3. I don't know why they would be there, but could be. Second function, hit the 3 key. There's list 3. All right. It's going to be a little different with the 83, and I'll talk about that for a moment. But initially, my values that I want the calculator to perform are in list 1. So second function, I'm going to hit the 1 key. right? List one. There is no frequency, right? We only have one list. We're going to see in a few moments where we have a frequency distribution. And then I'll tell the calculator where to find those values. But right now, we only have values in one list. There is no frequency. I'm going to bypass that, arrow down to calculate, hit my enter key. And there it is. It does its magic. X bar is the mean. Notice it's corrected 2 decimal places because I set my float to 2 decimal places. You may be interested in the summation of all the values. You may be interested in the summation squared. I doubt it. This is going to play a very important part in the next section. S of x. This is what's known as the standard deviation. The sigma x is also a standard deviation, but we're not going to use that. This is a standard deviation if we have a population. When I ask you for standard deviation, I'm going to be looking for this value here, S of x. It's pretty easy to remember. The S stands for standard deviation. And it tells me how many values that I entered in my list. 144 was the minimum, the smallest value. We're going to talk about quartiles in section 3.3, so it's a little premature right now. And there it is, the median. All right, the median of all those values was 171.00. Instead of me having to add up all 14 numbers and divide by 14 the way we did it back in 5th or 6th grade, the calculator does it for you. Arrowing down, it tells me what quartile 3 is. We'll explain that down the road in a couple of sections. And it gives me my maximum value. All right, so 2 things I was interested in. It was the median, all right, 171, and I was also interested in the mean, which is 169.29. All right, to get out of this menu, I would hit second function, hit the mode key. Second function mode will quit out of this, back to a blank screen. How do things differ with the 83? Well, here's my numbers in list one. Hits the stat key, arrow over to calculate. We're only going to be using this very first option ever. Hit enter, and now it just sits there waiting for me. It's flashing. What it's doing, it's waiting for you to tell the calculator, hey, what list should I go to get the values that you want me to do some calculations on? If I don't hit anything and just press enter, it'll assume the values are in list one. All right, it'll assume that. It gives me all my answers. Let me go back to the 84 just to verify that the values are exactly the same. There it is. 167.29 is your mean. This stuff here, other than S of X down the road, will become important. But for now, I'm looking for the mean, 169, 7.29, whatever. And then the median, the same as it was. Now, let me quit out of this. Let's assume now, quit out of it. And I'll quit out of it eventually. Well, clear did it. All right, so sometimes second, that's a little unusual. Clearing did the same thing as second function quit. All right, so on the 83, the clear worked. Let's assume we go back now, hit stat, go to calculate, one variable stat. Now, if I don't hit anything, it assumes the values are in list one. Or I could have gone second function, hit the one key, there it is. If I wanted list two, many times when we use multiple lists on the 83, not on the 84, there's a frequency associated with it. A lot of times the frequency is in another list. What you've got to do with the 83 is separate those two lists that you want the calculator to perform operations with, separate it with a comma. And let's assume that my second list is in L2, second function, hit the 2 key. All right, on the 83, you have to tell it specifically and enter it in. It's a little different than the 84, which kind of prompts you. It tells you, hey, where's the list? The 83 just kind of flashes. All right, I'm going to clear this off. And I'm going to second function, quit out of this. I say there's another video further down that talks about list basics, but that's how to find the mean and the median working with list. Hopefully this helps out. But here's another thing too. Sometimes you just kind of forget. I gotta believe there are literally hundreds of videos on YouTube that deal with the TI. Sometimes you just got to be creative. Stop what you're doing. Go to YouTube and type in, "Hey, I'm interested in doing this on an 83." There's somebody out there that's taken the time to produce a video. In lieu of that, you have the discussion board. You have my email. A few people have taken advantage of it, and a majority of you I haven't heard from, but that could be good or bad. We'll find out soon. In fact, I'll announce tomorrow, Thursday, the 11th, when our first exam will be. All righty. Talk to you later.